So you want to write a book on fly fishing or fly tying. Sounds simple enough. You basically sit down at your computer, you get your thoughts, you organize things, you write it up, you send it to a publisher, all done. It's that easy, right? Don't I wish. Writing a book is definitely not an easy process. And I'm going to tell you the story behind my most recent book called Tying Euro Nymphs and Other Competition Favorites. Well, let me tell you the story of how this book came to be. And like so many other books, it starts with an idea. I said to myself, what do I absolutely love to do and I've gained a lot of knowledge about over the last few years? Well, it's called Euro nymphing. And I jumped right down that rabbit hole. I just went all in when it comes to fly fishing with Euro nymphs. And I really fell in love with the flies that anglers use to catch trout and char and other species whenever they're European nymphing. So I asked myself a simple question. Why isn't there a book out there that talks about all the modern flies tied by some of the best anglers and fly fishers out there today? Why doesn't that book exist? I think it should be out there. And I said, I'm going to be the one that writes it. So I called my publisher, Jay Nichols of Headwater Books, and I proposed my idea. And I waited. And he thought about it. And then he told me about 17 different reasons why it was not really a good idea. And I sat there patiently and I thought, I think he's probably right. It's not a good idea. But then he said, what about this? And he added something, and then he added something else, and then he added a third thing and a fourth thing. And by the end of our phone call, he said to me, Tim, I think you're the only one out there that could write this book. What do you say? I started laughing. I'm like, Jay, I'm not quite sure what happened here. We started off where I proposed the idea, you told me no, and now you're telling me I'm the only one that could do it. And he's like, yes, you can. But here's the idea. And his idea was an absolute golden one. Basically, imagine starting with 15 Euro nymphs. These are going to be the flies that I'm going to tie, photograph, and talk about. But not just 15 random Euro nymphs. I'm going to talk to today's top anglers and interview them and find out how they're tying them, their favorite bead colors, their confidence lists of flies. Basically, pick their brains and just find out all about Euro nymphs, dry flies, dry droppers, these jig streamers, find out as much as I can, and then incorporate all of that into one book. Sounds easy, right? It's not easy. So I say, I'm all in. And I start making phone calls and sending emails and talking to all of my friends and basically say, hey, who's interested in helping me out with this project? And I will tell you, so many of my friends and fellow anglers stepped up and said, I'm in. There was not even a question about it. In fact, of all the anglers I asked, I think there's only like 2 that said no because they had other prior commitments. But of the ones that said yes, you can't even imagine these anglers. Let's talk about the person who wrote my foreword, Devin Olson. He's a member of Fly Fishing Team USA. He's just one of those anglers that I look up to. So many of you look up to. He wrote the foreword for my book. I interviewed him multiple times. I could text him, ask him questions. I feature some of his flies in the book. I mean, let's just go through this list of anglers who helped me out. This is like the who's list of fly fishing today. Howard Crossan of the UK, Lubos Rosa of Czech Republic. Tom Rosenbauer talked about it. In fact, Tom's section is so incredible because he basically questions, what is a Euro nymph? How's that different than an actual nymph? And he said, well, if it is a Euro nymph, I guess I'm out of the club because that must just be the cool kids clubs for Euro nymphs because I'm just a regular nymph fly fisher. I mean, Tom wrote such a stunning section about that. One of so many that just put in time, put in energy to help me write this one. I won't forget some other Pennsylvania anglers, people like Josh Miller. Josh had just finished his book on Euro nymphing. I asked him, hey, can I interview you for my book? He didn't even hesitate. He said yes. I said, hey, can you help me take the cover shot for my book? He didn't even hesitate. He said yes. The cover that you're looking at right now, Josh is the one that took that picture. Josh, thank you so much. Let's not forget Pat Weiss, another Pennsylvania angler that was a member of Fly Fishing Team USA. Pat went out of his way to share so much of his insights into fishing, not just Pennsylvania, but all around the world. One more PA angler, George Daniel. He shared some of his favorite flies of all time for my book. And now let's go in different directions. I would call up other people like Noah Shapiro. He was a member of the youth team and he would, talk to me for an hour and a half, and I would take all these diligent notes and just pick his brain whenever it came to European nymphing. And then he would say, Tim, call this person. He's a friend of mine. And he would give me their contact information. So I would record them on a Zoom call. Then they would tell me about somebody else. And before you know it, I had like 30 people interviewed for my book. Names like Lance Egan, Jan Wittmer. I talked to Tim Flagler, Phil Raleigh. I mean, I have to get the list out just to read some more of the names to you. All right, you ready for this? Here we go. I'm going to read all the names. You're going to be astounded to know all of these people are featured in my book. We're talking about people like Devin Olson, Howard Croston, Pat Weiss, Lance Egan, Josh Miller, Noah Shapiro, Ollie Bassett, Tom Rosenbauer, Pablo Castro-Pinos, David Arquet, fly fishing champion, Umberto Orglini, Phil Raleigh, Paul Gaskell, Michael Bradley, member of Fly Fishing Team USA. I'm not going to stop yet. Joe Clark, Curtis Fry of Fly Fish Food, Andy and Ann Kitchener of Semper Fly, Gregory Juglaret of the French fly fishing team. No one from France talks. Gregory shared some information with us. Incredible, thank you so much. David Heise, Jarko Sumanen, Cody Bergdorf, Lubos Rosa, Mike Kamara, Eric Claymore, Sean Whitman, Jan Vittner, Nick Malloy, Dylan Gonzalez, Drew Bone, and Hunter Hoffler. I mean, this list right here is amazing, and you may not even recognize some of these names, like David Heise. He's the individual that created one of my favorite flies, the Squirmy Wormy. Yes, like I literally interviewed the guy that invented the Squirmy Wormy. I talked to Pete Erickson. He is a member of the Fly Fishing USA Masters team in the United States, and he won the gold. Like, these are the people that I talked to, the best of the best. But didn't I tell you there was a problem? Because I have all of these 1 hour long Zoom interviews, all these emails with all this information, and I also have to write a book. So let's go back to that beginning where I had my 15 flies selected. I said, these are my 15 Euro nymphs. I threw them away. I mean, I kept a few of them, but I started adding in some of these nymphs and some of these flies that these incredible anglers mentioned. And all of a sudden I had 15 new flies, Euro nymphs, dry flies, and jig streamers. And then for each one of those, I also included a variation. So when you look through my book, I share 30 of the most incredible flies being used today, but I didn't stop there. At one point in my first interview, that was with Devin Olson, I asked him a very important question. I said, Devin, if you could take 5 flies with you to fish anywhere around the world in moving water for trout or char, what would your 5 flies be? And Devin rattled off 5 flies. And I kept that question. And I asked every single angler about their 5 flies. And the next thing I know, I have 30 confidence lists from today's top anglers. So in this book, imagine you just flipping through it and all of a sudden, there's George Daniels' top 5 flies. There's Tom's top 5 flies. I even put my own top 5 flies in there. That was a ton of work to kind of organize and put all this stuff in there, but I accomplished it. And then finally, this was supposed to be a fly tying book, but you can't talk about European nymphing without the notion of the European nymphing. So we talk about leaders and fly rods and lines and just everything you can imagine. And it wasn't just my own thoughts, my own opinions, my own experiences. It was from these other anglers, and I was inserting their quotes in all the applicable positions. So now imagine this book, hundreds of pages written with some of today's top anglers about the flies they're fishing like today, about their favorite bead colors to fish, and why they're gonna select a copper bead over a silver bead. But if they come to a day that's kind of sunny, they're gonna select this bead over another bead. That's the type of information you get in there. Now, I had some key takeaways from this book. I mean, number one, whenever I looked over all these confidence lists of flies, I mean, these are today's top anglers, top fly tyers, yet there was not one fly that was found on every single angler's list. If I could narrow it down to like one nymph that was basically on everyone's list, it would be a pheasant tail. But then Paradagons, that was a top one on so many, so much in fact that I dedicated an entire chapter to Paradagons. But let's not forget junk flies. I'm talking about like mup flies, worms, eggs. Yes, I have a whole section on them. And it's a great section because so many of these anglers said these are flies they love to use. But also, many anglers said these are flies I would never use. And trust me, I use those quotes too, because I want to really share that fly fishing is just this wonderful sport. Fly tying is this great hobby. These are things that we really love. Yet when I'm talking to 30 of the most influential anglers today, I want to also recognize that each of them chose their own path. And I'm sharing those paths in this book for all of you. So was it easy to put together? No. Was it easy to write? Absolutely not. Was it easy to photograph? Yeah, that was probably the easiest part because the flies weren't moving. But whenever it all came to be, this was an absolute just bear of a project. That was probably Jay's idea when he initially signed off on it. Did I get it turned in by the deadline? I didn't. My book was a couple, 2-3 months late, but I got the book turned in and it came out awesome. So I hope all of you enjoy it. If you'd like to buy an autographed copy, you can find them on my website, which is troutandfeather.com. Cammisa.com. And whenever you read that, that's not just Tim Cammisa's book. This is all these anglers' book, because all of them contributed so much. And for any of them that are watching this video right now, I want you to know from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for helping me make this book. But then most importantly, that person I have to thank above everyone else is my wife, Heather. Because in the midst of this book, we continue to travel, we continue to fly fish, we continue to raise our family. We have 2 wonderful children, my son Angelo and my daughter Fina, and they are definitely just our lives. There are so many components of this book that I hope you enjoy. I mean, the confidence lists, without a doubt. I hope you like my acknowledgments, because I really took some time to write that, to thank everybody, and to share some little stories throughout that. But then finally, I think my dedication says it all, because I wrote this dedication to my family. And here's how it goes. For Heather, Angelo, and Josephine. Here's to the countless memories we've made on the water and the many more adventures yet to come. So is writing a fly fishing or fly tying book an easy proposition? Absolutely not. But I don't think anyone thought it ever would be. And what about you? If you're thinking about writing your own book on tying or fishing or some other topic, should you do it? 100% you should. You want to get your thoughts, your ideas, your experiences, your opinions out there. Absolutely pay it forward. That's what these sports are all about. But make sure you have a really good publisher. Jay Nichols, you are the man. You took this small little idea, kind of like a seed, and you grew it into this incredible tree. Thank you for everything you do. You have been so important to the sport of fly fishing. I don't think anyone knows the impact you've made, but I truly appreciate you taking that small idea and making it into this book. And I hope many of you find a publisher just like I found mine. But let's not stop this fun yet. You know I love to European nymph, and I bet many of you do too. I put together a playlist of a bunch of the videos I've made revolving around European nymphing, involving some techniques, some interviews, and some of my favorite flies. Click on that playlist, continue your learning. You can thank me later.